Now we turn our attention to the founder of Islam, Muhammad. Muhammad was born in the city of Mecca, an important religious and trading center near the southwestern coast of Central Arabia in 570 or 571. He belonged to the powerful Quraysh tribe. His father, however, died before Muhammad's birth, and his mother died when he was only 6. So the young Muhammad's uncle, Abu Talib, brought him up. Abu Talib belonged to a poor branch of the family, and Muhammad worked for him as a lowly shepherd. But as a hardship of poverty and childhood gave way to prosperity and adulthood, Muhammad became a very successful merchant working for a wealthy widow named Khadijah. Their relationship blossomed and deepened, despite the fact that Khadijah was 40 years old and Muhammad was only 25. They married in the year 595, and the marriage produced 2 sons and 4 girls. And the youngest of the girls, Fatima, became Muhammad's favorite in later years and married Muhammad's cousin Ali, who was to be Islam's fourth caliph. And caliph literally means leader or successor. Of course, the caliph is a very important officer in Islam, as you know from the things that have happened here in America and the discussions we've had over the past 20 years or so. Muhammad's commercial journeys and support of his business from Mecca through Arabia and Syria brought him into contact with Jews and Christians, with whom he discussed, of course, religion and matters of theology. Although the prevailing form of Arabian religion was tribal paganism, there was an economically powerful Jewish minority and quite a large scattering of Monophysites, which we saw in the previous lecture, plus a small number of Nestorians and Orthodox Chalcedonian hermits. There were also in Arabia at that time various native groups who, under Jewish and Christian influence, had become dissatisfied with the outright pagan idolatry of their homeland. They wanted to worship something. And of course, that's what is hardwired into us, isn't it? To worship something, and we will worship something. The question is who or what. And so they began to worship the Creator God alone, but without embracing either Judaism or Christianity. Muhammad became one of these worshippers of the one God. When he was not away on a trading journey, he adopted a habit of meditating alone in a cave on Mount Hira, a very important place in the rise of Islam. It was near Mecca. Muhammad, it seemed, was simply a quiet, sincere, thoughtful man. Prosperous, kind to the poor, happily married with a deeply religious nature, dissatisfied with paganism and seeking the truth about the one God and the creator of all. So he was, in a very real sense, a seeker of truth. Then the year 610 came the central experience of Muhammad's life, which was to divert the entire river of human history into a fresh and revolutionary channel. For in that year, Muhammad received what he believed to be the first of many personal revelations from God, launching him into his amazing career as the prophet of Allah. And Allah is simply Arabic for God. According to Muhammad, the angel Gabriel, of course, whom we know from Scripture, appeared to him while he was meditating in a cave on Mount Hira and gave him the following message. It said, "Read in the name of your Lord, who has created all things, who has created man of congealed blood. Read by your most beneficent Lord, who taught the use of the pen, who teaches man that which he does not know." And this is from what will later be known as the Quran, Surah chapter 96. Muhammad, as any of us would be, was terrified at first. He did not know whether it was really the angel Gabriel or some demonic deception which had appeared to him. So he rushed back home and told his wife what had happened. Khadijah believed in the divine origin of Muhammad's experience on the basis that God would not allow such a good man as Muhammad to be deceived. So Khadijah became, at the same time, the person who persuaded Muhammad to accept his revelation experiences as coming from God. And she also became her husband's first convert. And slowly and quietly, at first, Muhammad became the center of a new religious movement in Mecca as he began criticizing paganism and idolatry and calling on people to worship Allah, the one true God alone. The number of his converts grew rather quickly. The most important of these earliest Muslims were Muhammad's young cousin, Ali, his friend Abu Bakr, who would become Islam's first caliph, his one-time deadly enemy, Omar, who later would become Islam's second caliph, and his son-in-law, Uthman, the third caliph. The new faith was called Islam, which means submission, and rightly so. It had at its roots Muhammad's overpowering conviction of the unity of the oneness of God, rejecting the Trinity as Christians, as we believe Holy Scripture teaches. Muhammad interpreted Allah's oneness to mean that he, the creator and Lord of the universe, was a single individual person, separated by an infinite distance from his creation, by his unique possession of divine attributes. There could be no other gods, and he was far from us. He was very different than the God of Scripture, who is near to us. The divine attribute Muhammad emphasized most was power. If it's one thing Islam emphasizes, which you know, it's power. Allah alone had power, and therefore he alone was the cause of all things, both good and evil. This God was transcendent, not immanent, and he alone was powerful. Idolatry, or violating Allah's oneness by acknowledging any other God or any other personhood in God, was the supreme sin. Muhammad's concept of God's oneness, that is, God as a single person, ruled out any belief in the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, of what we believe to be at the heart of who our God, the one true God we believe, is. Muhammad felt that this God, the God we believe, the triune God that we worship as Christians, whom we worship as Christians, was no better than a pagan idolatry of many gods. He regarded Jesus as his own forerunner, sinless and virgin-born, a miracle worker, the greatest of God's prophets apart from Muhammad himself, but really just second place and only as a man, not divine, not the eternal Son of God who became flesh. He rejected that wholesale. Muhammad also refused to accept that Jesus had been crucified. God would not allow his prophets to be treated so shamefully. Muhammad summed up the new religion in 5 main duties, the 5 pillars of Islam, which we will look at in our next short lecture.